Hello, everybody. How's it going? Welcome to Thorium's. We're calling it the Autumn Q&A for UnderMine 2. We're here to showcase more of the game and take your questions. I am Kyle Hilliard. I'm Thorium's community manager, marketing coordinator, PR, social media stuff, moderator guy today. That's what I'm doing. We're joined by designer Clint Tasker. What's up, Clint?
Hello, that's me.
That's you with all the energy and excitement he can muster. We're also joined by programmer Derek Johnson. What's up, Derek?
What's up, everybody? Happy to be here again.
Yeah. And art man, art director Cortland Winslow. How's it going, Cortland?
Hey guys, thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in, everybody. We already got some folks here in the chat, and please
People are trickling in.
Speak up in the chat about audio levels and stuff too, because I'll tweak those as needed. I want to make sure you can hear everybody. We can start answering questions. We culled a lot from Discord. You can join the UnderMine Discord, where we're always in there every day. Yeah, turn yourself up a bit, I would say. I'm guessing that's me, so I'll turn myself up. Here we go. I'll turn it up as much as I can here. Fine enough on my end, says okay. Oh yeah, so we're playing as Black Rabbit here. There's a dash. Yeah. She plays differently than the peasant.
Yes.
Let's we're gonna kick off here. Like I said, we pulled questions from Discord, the UnderMine Discord, and we're gonna go through some of those, and we're also gonna take questions from the chat. So please throw them out there. We want to hear them. First question here from the A Gamer 11 on Discord asks, "What tools/workflows have you made to help the development process?" And then they're saying, "I'm referring to things like custom windows, tile map systems, automated generation tools that you made for the Unity editor or other programs you use. Is there anything you're particularly proud of or want to show off?" I bet that's a Derek question.
This sounds like a Derek question, yeah.
It sure is.
So we came out of UnderMine 1 development with a lot of tool wants, I'll say. We built a lot of custom stuff on top of Unity for UnderMine 1. But it just wasn't enough, and this is part of our big redemption arc in making this game, is that we had to go a lot harder on tools to achieve the size of this game and the complexity of this game. So Clint's got exactly the one I had in mind up right now. So Unity provides some out-of-the-box tile map editors, but sorry, Unity, they're just awful. We spent a lot of time evaluating them, and they just weren't going to cut it. So I dug in really hard and made our own tile map system for painting our own widgets or objects, entities, I guess we call them, to the scene. And this dramatically sped up development for us. If you know anything about Unity, I'll use a couple Unity terms here. These are just painting prefabs into the scene. In UnderMine 1, if we wanted to make a new encounter like Clint is making, it would have been just a full day of duplicating and Control-C, Control-Ving prefabs around. Now you just click and drag from the tile map editor. Another really nice thing about this tool is that it just reminds us what entities we have available to us. We have such a library of things now, we often forget, oh yeah, we have this trap, or we have this type of rock, or we have this feature of making tracks that a spinner can run on. Tile map is just at your fingers a really good reminder of what those tools are. I'm going to talk about mods a lot today, so I'll kick that off by saying that this tool is fully integratable with our mod system. If you too are developing a mod and you have different entities you want to add to the tile map, you can do that really simply. You just make a new object in your mod project and then give it a category for the tile map system. And voila, it'll just show up on that window right there, and you can start painting with it.
Yeah, five Harky, which I guess is Shark, on Discord, was asking about Steam Workshop in particular, related to mods and things like that. Just wondering if UnderMine 2 will have Steam Workshop, allowing mods for map making, other gear, etc.
It will. We have a huge mod tool we spent a lot of time creating, and it's fully automated. It'll just upload to the Steam Workshop. It'll automatically create new versions for you. It'll upload with your Steam account, so it'll automatically fill out all the fields in the workshop for you. You can use it basically to make any content we can make. So encounters, items, enemies, bosses, NPCs, new dialogue, new languages, anything you can think of pretty much we've made accessible to the mod system. So yeah, so Clint in just a matter of a minute has made a full new encounter with a lot of cool stuff going on in it. And that's kind of the nexus of a lot of our new tools, is making encounters faster, making items quicker, making dialogue trees making new floors and new bosses and new enemies. So long story short, we've added a huge amount of new tooling to Unity to make our type of game really, really fast to create. It wouldn't be possible without the great framework of C# and other tools that Unity provides for us. But yeah, hardly ever do we use a default Unity tool anymore. Almost everything is our own tooling, and we will be shipping that tooling to the community to create mods with.
Cortland, this
There we
isn't
go.
so much a question as a statement, but Robin V45 says the art is so good. Just making sure you saw that.
I saw that comment. I really appreciate it. My ego needs those every once in a while.
Yeah.
Glad. I mean, we've done. I've added a lot to the old art style to try to like carry the torch of UnderMine 1, but there was a lot of new art. I mean, almost entirely new art, really. But yeah, trying to like marry my style with the UnderMine style, and I always like when people are excited about it. So, thank you.
Yeah, this is a question we've answered a number of times before, but worth mentioning all the time, just so people are aware. Saria on Discord asks, will there be early access? Saying that they loved early access on UnderMine 1 and loved the roadmap and playing along the game until it was finished eventually, like the progression of knowing the first boss is available and then the second and like that. UnderMine is entering early access on Steam. Like, just to be clear, so everyone knows. That's how it is going to launch. It is going to launch into early access.
Yes. Yeah, early access will be far more. It'll be probably a longer early access period than UnderMine went, because I guess how to phrase this, like the game. UnderMine was, I mean, some of this was covered in the other Q&A, but I guess it's worth repeating. And like UnderMine was developed under kind of less than ideal circumstances. Derek and I were figuring out a lot, and we didn't quite know what we were building at the time, and we didn't know what tools we would need. And in a lot of ways, we painted ourselves into a corner. We could have continued supporting it, but there were just a lot of things we wanted to do that would take far longer than we thought they should take. And in the end, we thought, taking 2 steps back to go 4 steps forward, or 1 step back and to go 2 steps forward, was the right thing to do. Because if we created the proper tools for ourselves, we could create content a lot faster and we could build a much bigger game. So that's what we've done this time around. UnderMine 2, when it releases into early access, will likely have close to, if not more, content than UnderMine 1 did. And then the early access period, we want to like double or triple that amount of content. And then even when it goes 1.0, if the game's doing really well and has a lot of like active players and people are really enjoying what's going on, we want to continue supporting it for much longer after that too. So we have huge ambitions for this game. We want to release it into early access because roguelikes really benefit from that kind of community interaction. We can get good. We're building in a lot of like data tracking. It'll be completely opt-in for players, but if you opt into the data tracking, you can give us data. We can help balance the game. We can make sure that like the secrets we've put in the game are getting found by people. And there's just like too much content in the game for us to test properly ourselves. And early access is a really, really great tool to help us out with that.
Speaking of,
oh, please go ahead.
Sorry, speaking of tools and testing, is there anything you want to talk about on that end?
Tools for early access, you mean?
No, sorry, the auto player I was referring to.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I would love to show that off maybe later today, but we've written essentially a player AI tool that just plays the game as the peasant round the clock, and we can spin up as many instances of this as we want. So we have really good automated coverage for this game. It just basically starts a run, grabs a random set of items, and then just plays harder than any human can possibly play. It warps around the room, it just clears enemies. It's really fun to play, and it discovers combos and tons of bugs for us, obviously, like unintended combos that we would never ever have the capacity to find. Like often I'll log in and it'll have overflown the follower limit, for example. It'll have an entire screen full of skeletons and the game's running at like 1 frame per second. and it's just crushing bosses with this, obviously. But we have to then roll back. It records all of the stuff it does to video, so we can roll back and figure out, like, okay, how did the auto player get 1,000,000 skeletons on its team? That shouldn't be possible. And then we'll see exactly where it happens, and we'll go fix the bug. So it's been a tremendous asset for bolstering our manpower capabilities, since we have nowhere near the time that it has to play round the clock. Yeah, and that's just one example of sort of the behind the scenes tooling that players will never be fully aware of. We're not going to ship the auto player. Although sometimes I dream about having a round the clock auto player stream on Twitch, just because it's so fun to watch. It just goes bonkers. And it really, really flexes the muscle, the combo muscle of this game's interaction. So anyway, yeah, great suggestion, Cortland. Just one of the many tools that have kind of become blind to, but are actually making a huge impact on our development.
Quinn actually asks from Discord, how far along is development roughly? No worries if an estimate is hard to give, and I imagine it is tricky to give a percentage, really.
That's a very hard question to answer. It depends on how you define finished development. I would say if we're looking at development compared to where we want to leave this game, like forever, we're at like 10%. Where our ambition lies before we go to early access, we're at maybe 70%. It's tough. Yeah, I'm trying not to like answer other questions that this might be like trying to like sneakily answer or ask. But we have, I guess we can talk about what we do have. So we have 6 zones completed. So that's what UnderMine had when it was finished. We have 5 bosses, and we have more items than UnderMine had. So we have quite a lot of content. But we want to make sure that we always want to have a lot of stuff that people find over a long period of time, and that takes a long time to develop. Like, you really have to bury things deep, and you have to build the systems before you even do that. So we're getting there. I'd say we've been in full-on production for a while now, and we're just getting faster and faster. So things are getting added quite rapidly at this point.
Ryan Shadow 507 from Discord asks about something that you guys revealed in the last Q&A, which is there are 2 floors per zone, which is different than UnderMine 1, which had 3 floors per zone. And they were just wondering, what is the reason for this change? And are there worries that it will make the runs shorter as a result, maybe too short?
The worry is certainly not that the run will be too short. The worry is that it will be too long. I think in UnderMine, an average run was probably like an hour and 15 minutes ish. Could go longer, could go shorter, depending on all the things, and that's going to be true this time around too. But I think a good number is an hour for a run. Like a half hour is an exceptionally good like chunk of gameplay. Like, you can slip that in at lunch or whatever. But that's unrealistic for the type of game that we're building. An hour, I think, is the sweet spot that we would like to hit. And we're close. It's highly dependent on how you play. There is a lot of strategizing per run, and even more now than there was in UnderMine 1. So that can slow things down quite a bit if you really want to perfect each floor and really like squeeze out as much potential from each floor as possible. But that is the reason we've gone to 2 floors per zone. Part of it is we didn't want to create any kind of fatigue. Running through a zone for 3 floors and then doing a boss kind of felt like you were in that zone for a really long time. Part of it is the floors have gotten a little bigger, and there's more special rooms to explore. So that basically we're trying to make it more dense over 2 floors than spread out over 3, if that makes sense. But the overall time to get through a run is about the same right now.
Slight Train 53686 asks in the the Twitch chat, is Black Rabbit's dash invincible?
Yes. So something we've been really trying to get across for this game is that there are different playable characters. We have 3 built so far, but one of them is a secret, and I don't want to reveal it, and I don't want to give any information about it. So we really only have Black Rabbit and the Peasant to work with right now. But I want to be clear that there will be a lot of these, and they're defined. They have a lot that defines them, and one of them, obviously, with Black Rabbit is she is dash based and not jump based. And yes, her dash has iframes, so you will not take damage while you're dashing. Similarly, the Peasant has the same thing, but with a jump. Understandably, people might be concerned because dashing makes platforming very difficult, and platforming was a big thing in UnderMine. But we have gone to great lengths to make sure her dash feels good. So if I make a hole like this, we just have a single tile out like that, and we build something like this. I think this is like a good demonstration of like how amazing these tools are, and we're really excited to ship these with the game. Players can make their own encounters very easily. It's not like Mario Maker levels of like you can't really screw it up. You can definitely screw it up, but it's way friendlier than a lot of modding stuff I've done in my career over the years. So very excited.
It's fun
But
to kind of see
going-
just build, the game on stream.
Yeah, and this is another advantage that we have over the last game in that we didn't have like this tile set system. I had to build like a new encounter. Like if we wanted to make this encounter for the mines in UnderMine 1 and then make it again in the, Shimmering Caverns, I would have to remake the whole thing. Like we couldn't skin it. So that was one of the first things we did when we built the new technology is like it is so dumb to recreate the same encounter. And now we have like all kinds of like advanced requirement systems where it's like, oh, maybe an organic room doesn't look good in a dungeon type scenario, or maybe a non-organic room doesn't look good in an organic zone. You can kind of white flag them, black flag them, and do all kinds of stuff to make sure that happens. But anyways, to show the kind of cheatiness that we've developed for game feel, if you dash into a space that's really, really small, you'll notice that she dashes farther out of it than she dashes into it. It's because she's being smart and going, don't over dash this, because we don't want you to always have to position yourself perfectly to space yourself exactly the length of a dash. If she's not going to make it, she'll push herself a little extra. So there is shenanigans in here, and the Peasant has similar stuff for his jump. We've gone to really, really great lengths to make sure the game feels good. If you run over an edge, you can actually dash from the hole. Like you actually get some time over the hole before it captures you and you take damage. Lots and lots and lots of little edge stuff to make the game feel really good.
Void on Discord was asking about the characters. Considering both the Peasant and Black Rabbit are confirmed as classes in the game, and in the first game, one is a singular character, Black Rabbit, is a character that you could meet in UnderMine 1, and the other, the Peasant, is randomly generated every time. How will that work in UnderMine 2? Only the Peasant gets the random treatment? Only a few classes get to be fixed characters? Black Rabbit is just a placeholder? No, Black Rabbit's not a placeholder. Black Rabbit is like a playable character. But yeah, can you guys talk on that maybe of just like how that works or what your idea is behind that?
One of you guys want to take that?
Sure, I'll take that one. Yeah, I mean, you pretty much summed it up. I think the Peasant is still random. If you're playing in co-op, currently the idea is that one player will be the male Peasant, one player will be the female Peasant. This is sort of a thematic lore rationale, just because we kind of want to view the characters as singular, even though yes, the Peasant is randomized each time. Also, it makes it just easier to differentiate who's player 1 and who's player 2 if they have different sprites rather than just being different colors. But only one of you will be able to play as Black Rabbit in this scenario. The other player will have to play a different character class, be it peasant, someone else, female peasant. So yeah, only the peasants currently get the random name and random color treatment. There's still the mirror in the hub that you can go inspect, and it will change your color. It only works for the peasant though currently. It doesn't randomize anything about Black Rabbit.
We also have not we have not implemented female peasant yet, but she will be implemented. So there will be randomized male peasant and randomized female peasant.
The A Gamer 11 on Discord. This might be a good question to you to talk to, Cortland. Is how will biomes differ from each other? Apart from the obvious things like visuals and enemy types and difficulty, in what ways do different biomes set themselves apart? And why would we pick one over the other when our path branches? So that covers a lot of stuff. You know, the art, all kinds of stuff.
I mean, from an art standpoint, and Clint kind of touched on this a little bit, is we can now skin our encounters so that we're able to reuse them. But there is some consideration there about, is this sort of like an organic room? Would this make more sense in the mines? Is this sort of like this encounter that Clint's firing up now? Is this sort of like a more inorganic, sort of squared off, very clean kind of encounter? So we're able to blacklist them if they don't make sense in one or the other. But the biomes themselves, and from a gameplay standpoint, even enemies aside, are going to have these sort of big set piece elements to them that are going to make them sort of, they're going to influence your strategy on how you play that floor, but also like really impact how you like tackle a run. So I think, for example, we've showcased the foundry in the mines, where you're able to take keys and bombs and melt them down into little hunks of ore, and then spend that ore in the foundry to then cast things into various relics and other things that are going to help you on the run. And there's some story items that are kind of related to these.
Yeah. So just going back to the playable character thing for a moment. Yeah, if you're playing as Black Rabbit, she does still have functionality in a run similar to what she had in UnderMine. You can sell relics to her. This system is actually probably going to make people excited. When you sell a relic to Black Rabbit, also this room is very temporary, so forgive me. So when you sell a relic to Black Rabbit, she'll actually place it on one of these tables, and she'll put it up for sale back for you. Like, you can rebuy it, but it'll be at a higher cost than you gave it to her. And it gets removed from relic pools. So if you want to curate your relics, this is one of a few ways that you'll be able to do it. So she'll have some tables in here by default, and you'll be able to buy some upgrades to advance to build more tables. It's probably not going to give you the perfect curation like a lot of players would like, but it's one of the tools. And then, yeah, if you ever see Black Rabbit while you are playing as Black Rabbit, you'll just see her little effigy like this. And then kind of going to Cortland's thing, talking about things in... So why would you go to other zones? Yeah, each zone has a very special room. We've been calling them... Well, internally, we've been calling them set pieces. We're thinking of calling them landmarks. This is the one in the gold mine, which is the abandoned foundry. And in the abandoned foundry, you can smelt keys. You can, if you have any extra keys, you can feed them to this little crucible, and you'll get iron. Iron gets stored run to run, and then you can use the foundry to cast special items. So I can build this throwing star, and now I can use this for the run. So this, you can either save up all your iron and buy a couple of these different things. Some of these relics are always here, and some change. But this is only how the foundry works. Each one of these things has very unique gameplay. In the labs, we've had screenshots of this. But Beltrami returns, and she sits with a thing called the apparatus. And the apparatus, we've actually just changed the functionality, so it's a little bit temporary right now. But you'll be able to donate spare potions to the apparatus, and then brew. Right now, these are temporary; these are just normal potions. But the apparatus will be filled with quite powerful, unique potions that you can only get here. And so, depending on the route that you take through the Undermine, some of these will be available to you, and some of them won't, because there will be branching paths into different zones that become mutually exclusive. There will be items and NPCs and stuff that can move you from kind of a conflicting zone to another zone. So that'll allow you to do some kind of desynced, out of order shenanigans. But for the most part, if you want to complete a quest or you want to complete a particular combo of items, you're going to have to take a certain route through the Undermine. And that goes for if you want to defeat a certain boss, or complete a certain NPC's quest line, or even complete the goals of an alternate ending to a run. Like, we will have optional bosses late in the run that will only be achievable, or you'll only be able to contest them or fight them depending on the route and the items that you've picked up through the run.
I think like generally the zones have a bit more flavor thematically too. Like the labs are our juicy potion zone, right? Like at least currently, you're probably going to encounter more potions than you would in other zones. There's more, all of our liquids are dynamic now, and a lot of our enemies really lean into that in this zone specifically. So I can see potentially like your build or what you want to accomplish on this run, any given run, influencing which zones you're going to want to pick going through. If you have the ability to sort of liquidate your potions, you have a bunch of potions you don't need, maybe you're going to go to the labs.
You guys have talked a little bit about relics, both in this stream and today as well. And let's see, Ryan Shadow 507 on Discord was asking. Oh gosh, I got the wrong question here. I'm sorry. Sorry, everybody. Got to make sure. I want to make sure I'm attributing the right questions. Okay. Luna Brookhader on Discord asked, what has or was the most difficult relic to add to the game, either in terms of coding, playtesting, or making an idea fit into gameplay? Which has been the hardest? Which I think also is an opportunity to just talk about relics in general and how they change Undermine 2 and how they differ from Undermine 1 and stuff like that. I'd love to hear you guys talk some about relics.
Go for it, Derek.
I definitely know the one that's going to be the hardest to implement, and we have not implemented it yet. And I'm dreading implementing it because it's going to be very, very difficult, but it's going to be an incredible payoff when I do it. Wow. Okay, hang on.
Okay,
in
well,
the last stream, you guys talked a lot about, you call it the Captain America shield, which is like the bouncing one, which is like a lot of fun. I remember the first time you guys showed me the game, that was one that you were excited to show me. I was very excited to see it. But there's tons of other stuff in the game that's really exciting.
I think what Derek thinks about the hardest one thing to say is, on Undermine, the dynamic has changed a lot. On Undermine 1, we would come up with an idea for a relic, and then we would implement that relic. But the implementation was very specific to that relic, and it didn't help us a lot later down the line with very adjacent or even very similar other relics. We just kind of had to redevelop them or develop them again. Now we come up with an idea for a relic, and usually it's like, oh man, 95% of the functionality exists for this thing, but we need kind of 5% extra. And we could hack it doing kind of some roundabout tricks in the logic or something like that. But we don't do that anymore. Instead, Derek really like kind of hunkers down and is like, okay, we built a mechanical system to handle this new kind of bit of logic that we are probably going to use again. And we try and really think about how we're going to use stuff again in the future. And it keeps creating this new base so that future more complicated relics actually aren't that complicated and aren't that hard. And that's really allowed us to make a lot of content faster.
Let's hit him with an example here.
I have the perfect example, I think, of what you just talked about, Clint.
Yeah.
Do you want to show Gilded Lion?
Yes. Hold on. Typing is hard because my microphone's in the... this is just me covering my inability to type. Okay, so this is Gilded Lion.
So we had armor in UnderMine 1. We have armor in UnderMine 2. The big difference is that UnderMine 2 armor has what's called attributes. And this is the first of many relics that will grant a very cool attribute to your armor. So what this does is it makes it possible to find golden armor shards. And the way that golden armor shards differ from normal armor shards is they fill your armor bar with gold armor, and when that armor breaks, when you lose it, take a point of damage on it, it drops a bunch of gold for you. So this was a very hard item to get off the ground because there's a lot of save load considerations. There's just a bunch of stuff that goes into how we render your armor in the UI efficiently and how to color it. I had to do a lot of shader work and a lot of really tricky math to figure out how to efficiently draw that pip or multiple pips as golden. But now that I've done that, like Clint was just talking about, we have a platform on which to build armor attributes. So in the future, we may have blue armor or cursed armor or moldy armor or slime covered armor or any number of attributes we can think of to apply to armor. And the system, the groundwork, the foundation has already been laid for that type of thing. So this was a difficult item to get off the ground, but it has opened the door for a tremendous amount of cool stuff in the future for us and for modders to explore as well. One more thought on the same topic. Some of the most difficult items in UnderMine were difficult, and I'm thinking about things like Soul Guard or Karmic Scale or some of these really kind of gameplay warping items. Those were difficult because we were designing them as we came along, as we came up with the idea. But now we have all the foresight of knowing those items need to exist in the ecosystem. And I was able to so much more easily account for them just because I knew they were a thing. I knew what they did. I knew what player expectations around them were. So they have systemic support, again, to Clint's point, rather than just sort of one-off hack it together to make it work. And it will not work for anything else support like we did in UnderMine 1. So in general, items are so much easier to make in this game because we know what they are in advance.
You were just talking to Beltrame a little bit, which made me think of this question. No solutions, obviously. We don't want to spoil anything. But Rigmiss on Discord asks about puzzles in the UnderMine. Will there be more puzzle logic in the dungeons? Could there be a running puzzle game between each dungeon? Find gem on floor 1 and insert gem into floor 3 to unlock a hidden door on level 2. Stuff like that is what the example they're giving. Will there be more puzzles in UnderMine 2?
Yes, there's a lot of puzzles. There's far more than there was in UnderMine 1, and there will be even more because of our new ability to create them a lot easier. I guess, well, this is a very simple one. This is part of like Beltrame's initial quest. I'm trying not to spoil too much because I don't want to like ruin people's first
don't
game.
spoil it. Maybe
won't-
that's
I
all we
won't-
can do is confirm that they're in there. You will encounter puzzles.
I won't show the solution to this puzzle, but this is one of her puzzles to unlock her. But yes, there's a lot.
I also saw a question just, I think, expressing surprise or the fact that quests, the word quests is getting thrown around, which is sort of news to some people, I think.
Yeah, I probably... These should not... It's not like capital Q quests. Like, we don't have a quest log. I don't really want to have that. These are more quests, I guess, in the way that, for lack of a better comparison, that you would find in something like Elden Ring or a FromSoft game, or kind of what you would find in UnderMine 1. So in UnderMine 1, there was a quest to rescue Wayland, or there was a quest to unlock characters, and those still exist. They're more elaborate this time around, but that's kind of still how they're presented. So like a character will tell you to accomplish something, and then that thing will kind of stay there until you accomplish it, and that results in unlocking characters or playable characters or items or other pieces of content.
I have a related thought on the idea of puzzles that goes back to the question about run length. Puzzles kind of run contrary to run length. If we're trying to keep your run under an hour, it really destroys that hour quickly if we're throwing multiple puzzles at you that take you 5 or 10 minutes a piece to ponder your way through. So there's always a push and pull there, I feel. Grind it out with tons of really complex puzzles and make your run take 3 hours, or it just puts a cap on the complexity of puzzles that we can realistically throw at you and not destroy your run length.
Let's see. Arha on Discord from our Discord channel asks about the difficulty ramp and how difficulty will work. They wrote, UnderMine was always a very fun game and my main introduction to roguelikes, but I always thought the main way to raise difficulty felt a little tedious apart from the hexes. Will there be a way to increase difficulty either more quickly or more fluidly than in the original UnderMine?
Yes. Yeah, in UnderMine, we had the summoning zone system, which was a bit tedious, and it was kind of boring, to be honest. It just raised the damage and the health of enemies and bosses. Our approach, I guess this kind of goes back to like how UnderMine was developed too. Like we didn't have a complete run assembled when UnderMine 1 went to early access. UnderMine 2 will have a complete core loop available when it's in early access, and our intention is to have the late game in place, at least the fundamentals in place for early access, so that people can see what our intention there is. Difficulty in UnderMine 2 is a little bit different because of branching paths. So here is an example where when you enter a zone, and these signs existed in UnderMine 1 basically to show you where you were. But now they show you the expected difficulty level of that area. And this is because when you take branching paths, some of the branching paths will be intentionally much harder than the main trunk of the game. So you're we want to disclose to you that we expect your build to be in a good place if you're going to take on these branches. Otherwise, you're going to have a bad time. So difficulty can depend on the direction that you take through the UnderMine. But I think the question sounded like they were more interested in how endgame difficulty works. Our intention is to dip into our hex mechanic, our hex system from the last game, which was once you completed a run, or once you completed, the first 5 zones of the game, Valine would show up and she'd be, here are some hexes to make your game more difficult. And they were interesting, not perfect, but you could apply them to yourself. But they were for fun. They were for they weren't a full system, I'd say. So our intention this time around is to build a full system around that and to really motivate players to challenge themselves in interesting ways. And we're going to build a bunch of hexes that are some will be brought over from UnderMine 1 because they were already pretty good, and a lot will be new because we think there's far more interesting ways to create that challenge. There will be like no upper ceiling to the challenge of this game, essentially. I think you will be able to make it impossibly difficult for any human. And our intention is, even without that system, our intention is to have optional content in the game that is exceptionally difficult. Like you will have to have put together an abused run to tackle it. So if people are familiar with how potion looping worked in UnderMine 1, that was one way to like essentially get way beyond the regular capabilities of what you would do normally. We're going to almost demand that you do that for some bosses in this game.
This is one area I'm very excited to see what modders come up with as well. Not that this stands in for what we want to do. We want to have the game have a huge amount of difficulty variance naturally unmodded, but I think this is a really great opportunity for modders to step in and really show how masochistic they want to play the game. Just make it just unthinkably brutal challenges for people to really dig into if they want to.
We do have a couple questions about mods because it is something people are interested in. And Derek, I know it's something that you're particularly excited about. Luna from Discord asks, will there be a mods setting page? Akin to Binding of Isaac, will there be a page in settings where you can manage your active and inactive mods, as well as toggle mods, specific settings, things like that?
So, Clint, if you want to open the options menu again, there is a... it'll be empty because I don't think we have any mods installed by default. But basically, this page will show you the installed mods that you have. Currently, the thought is that you will be able to either mark a particular save slot for mods on, mods off. So let's say you want your first save slot to be reserved for unmodded, vanilla playthrough, all achievements active, you know, just to get the core experience. You can guarantee that that save slot will always give you an unmodded experience. If you want to keep save slot 2 for mods on, go crazy, mess around with it, it just makes a nice firewall between modded experience and unmodded experience. And we're drawing that line at the save slot level currently.
Yeah, and then Dave's employee asks from Discord, how will you encourage and support a modding community? Love the first game. There's no mod support, which I feel needed to increase longevity and foster community. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the reasons the guys brought me on here, is they're hoping that in the future, as mods come about, I can sort of be an avenue of, like, taking a look at them and elevating the ones that we like and that are cool. And, you know, I want to work with Derek to put together even, like, tutorials and things to show, like, how to get started with mods, because it can be an intimidating thing. It's certainly something on my mind that I really want to push for in the future when we're in early access. Because modding will be there in early access, right? Like from the start, or am I getting ahead of us?
We're still debating whether we're going to have it at launch of early access or not, but it will roll out during early access, specifically because we're going to need a lot of help from the community to put it through its paces, vet it, work with them closely to determine, you know, the final API for when we go 1.0. We have an enormous pile of documentation that I would love to write eventually to document our APIs, to have a lot of how-to videos on how to get started with it. It's a huge amount of work that we're ultimately, I think, going to need the community's help to create. And yeah, it's going to be an ongoing process, and one that I'm very much looking forward to, because this is new ground, not only for us as a studio to really put out a well-supported mod package, but I still have very high confidence that the way that we've chosen to make our mod framework within Unity is, I've never seen anything like this in the industry before. And when I even brought it up with Unity, I said, hey, by the way, we're thinking about doing our mod support this way. They're like, whoa, that works? We didn't even know that was going to work. So we're treading unexplored territory on multiple fronts here, and I'm really excited to see how it plays out, and to get the community's help in pushing it a lot further.
Yeah, if you're excited about mods, be excited, because Dee's been talking a lot about mods.
I won't shut up about mods ever. I will talk for days about mods. I'm very excited for this future.
And it's been something he's talked, I mean, since we've really pivoted to focus on UnderMine 2, he's been talking about it like from day one, and laying that track early to get it in the best state it can be. He's been at it since we started, so.
Yeah, it's really informed the core decisions that we've made around the tools and the engines and the architecture that we've made this game with. So it can't help but not be fully supported, because when we support our own selves in these tools, we're also supporting the mod community at the same time.
Let's see. Dave's employee here on Discord asks, will there be a looping mechanic? Always love to take my build into wacky places and break the game. Will you have an option to continue a one run?
Yeah, I think there's not like solid plans on how this will work yet, but enough people have requested it, and I think games like Balatro really show that basically playing past whatever the challenge that you're trying to accomplish is fun. So I think we certainly will build something like that, but I don't know what it is yet.
Yeah,
I'll be the internal advocate for this too. I've been saying, hey, why don't we let people loop, but we'll see where it lands. But I'm a big fan of this kind of idea too.
Well, I appreciate when I came on and I, continually talk to you guys about the game and what you're making. You guys have always been very much like, we don't really mind if people break the game apart as long as they're having fun. We want to encourage people to play the game they want, and if that means breaking it to a certain degree, that's okay. And I just think that's admirable, and I like that. I think that's cool.
Question from Twitch was, any concerns about Unity's sudden subscription fees? There is no longer any concern because there is no longer any subscription fees. Unity has rolled back all that and fired the guy whose idea it was. So yeah, we're happy that Unity. We really like Unity, and it feels like they're on a better trajectory. So we're glad to still be using them as a base engine.
Yeah, they're definitely on their apology tour right now. We get a nonstop flood of emails saying, "We're so sorry. Please be friends with us again." And the good news about them canceling that subscription fee is now it was always going to take effect after a certain version of Unity, and that kind of hamstrung us as far as wanting to continue to update Unity and stay on a newer version that might dip us into subscription fees. But now that they've canceled all that, like Unity 6 is back on the table, Unity 7, whatever they roll out in the future, so we can stay as reasonably current with it as we feel comfortable to, and the community can expect to be on usually the latest version of Unity for their modding as well.
Let's see. Ryan Shadow 507 on Discord. They phrase it thusly. They say, "What are the developers' favorite new feature?" Which is something that you guys talked about, phrased that way in the last Q&A. But I'd kind of like to expand it to just like new features that you're excited about. It doesn't necessarily have to be your favorite. Just new stuff that you like, that you're really proud of. I can kick us off with just as a like I'm just like I'm a player who happens to be on the inside, right? Is that what I consider myself? It's a small feature. I guess it's not fair to phrase it that way. I didn't make it. Maybe it was a huge pain in the ass to make. Maybe it's not small at all. But the feature that when I go back to UnderMine 1 that I miss tremendously is fast travel. Fast traveling to the areas that you've already been to in UnderMine 2. I love. It's like it's this little thing that just totally changes how I explore the mines in a way that I really appreciate. So thank you guys for integrating that. I appreciate it.
Again, integral to the run length conversation. Without fast travel, runs get a lot longer. I don't know, Cortland, what's your favorite feature?
I was going to say player characters. The idea of like selecting your character at the beginning of a run just for like vanity purposes and just for flavor. It's always like, in any game that adds so much. I'm a big sit in the character creator for an hour kind of guy when I play an RPG. But I think my favorite feature added to UnderMine 2, it's got to be just the level of build variety compared to the first game, especially, and your ability to sort of not control, but do a little bit of manipulation and like tweaking to sort of hopefully nudge your way toward the build that you want to. If you want to do a throw build, you want to do a bomb build. I love follower builds and being able to like kind of work to piece that together yourself and get there and have like a successful run with a bunch of minions doing everything for you. It's a whole new game. I love it so much.
Derek, do you remember what I named that relic that like does shockwaves when you pierce things? I can't remember the name of all these things anymore.
Blasting caps.
Blasting caps.
No. I mean
Javelin.
Not javelin, but something like that. It's like some kind of piercing weapon.
Oh, so it's like a spear or something.
Oh yeah, it was like a spear, I think. A seismic spear, was that it?
Yeah, something like that.
Here we go. Favorite feature, man. I don't know. I don't know if I have a specific favorite feature. It's more just the culmination of everything, like the amount of wild items that we can make and how they interact with each other. So yeah, here's a wild one I think that I'm really proud of, and I think it's setting us up for the future. So unstable concoction is actually here. Let me set up a room for this real quick. but this will be familiar to people who played the first game a little bit. Okay, so we have some gold nodes. Unstable concoction created little explosion. We're trying to really solidify the language of the game, and kind of what I mean by that is unstable concoction made these little explosions that it's like, are they the same as bomb blasts? Are they not? We don't want that kind of ambiguity anymore. So we've really kind of created like proper nouns for these things. So that we have this thing called a shockwave now, which is an AoE that does ingenuity damage. Ingenuity is a stat that you can increase. And so now unstable concoction creates shockwaves when gold hits the ground. So it mostly does what it did in the old game. So if I do this, all these little shockwaves, if there was like a rat around, which, hey, let's get a rat. So you bring these rats over here, and these little shockwaves will basically. And then if I, bump my, please don't mind this screen, it's very temp. But if we roll up our ingenuity, which you'll be able to do in all kinds of ways, and do this, it'll absolutely just blast this rat. But there's a lot of other items that can go along with this, and one is something we've made called Drums of War. And this item will replace your shockwave with something called a crescendo. A lot of our charm relics are based around music, and so what this does is instead of doing an ingenuity blast, you now do little musical blasts. And musical blasts will, instead of killing the rats, charm them. So now the rats are mine. So we have relics in the game now that really like can take a whole set of relics and make them like, if I'm in a shockwave build, I care about stuff that will boost my ingenuity. I want to create more shockwaves. I want to make them bigger. All of these things are possible through all kinds of means. But let's say I get a couple charisma blessings, and I'm like, well, maybe having a bunch of followers would actually be really great. And now I get presented with these drums. Any shockwave item is now a charm item, like essentially for all intents and purposes. So we're gonna have these items that can like really dramatically shift your builds just by picking them up. And I think that's really cool. And to reveal kind of some shenanigans behind the scenes, you can think like, well, these drums of war, they replace your shockwaves with crescendos. If you have no item that has a shockwave on it, this is just an absolute blank. Like this is a card in your deck that doesn't do anything. But we're going and doing a lot of behind the scenes tuning. So this item will possibly show up if you have no shockwave items, but it's a very rare chance. So you can see it before the build unfolds. But if you do have shockwave items, it becomes a far more, not like overly represented in the item pool, but fairly represented in the item pool. It basically becomes a normal item. So more often than not, you will see items that can apply to your build and not be just blanks. But the items themselves will not be necessarily useful unless you have other things to combo with them. Hopefully that makes sense. The game is not intended to be like a curated experience. We do still really love the roguelike, like do what you can with what you're presented, but we more often than not want to present stuff to you that's applicable to what you're doing. We don't want to just show you a bunch of blanks. I think that's boring.
Good answer.
Yeah.
My answer is much more simple, and I can't remember what I said in the first stream. I probably said something like mod support. But this time around, I'm going to say definitively co-op. I have been having such a blast playing co-op with this game. It's always been a very attractive platform for me for a co-op experience, just because it's so playful. The interactions are so cool. It's so easy to like have funny stuff happen where you come out of a room or you come out of a door and like push your push your co-op partner into a pit or something like it. Well, we don't force you to do that. You still have to intentionally do it, but it's just a very interactive experience with your co-op partner, and it's a blast. It may be my favorite way to play this game.
Yeah, we have co-op questions, unsurprisingly, and some of these we've answered before, but I think it's worth sort of reiterating where applicable and stuff like that. Happy Star on Discord was asking questions about local co-op and how you play together. Will the game have a local co-op option? And if yes, will it have a remote play together option?
So yes, local co-op is the only way to play co-op, and you can definitely play through remote play, which is how we do all of our co-op play testing. The experience varies, but generally, I think if the host has a really good upstream or an average upstream, it's very playable. You often cannot tell the difference between being local and playing over remote play, in my experience. It's a great technology.
Grape on Discord asks, will co-op and single player have the same features?
They really should, aside from a few like resurrection mechanics to bring your co-op partner back, and we haven't made any of these, but we've talked about them occasionally, like a co-op specific relic or combo relic. Yeah, they're the same experience. You can do anything in co-op that you could in single player. You can explore the whole quest system. You can unlock characters. You can do all of the stuff you can in single player in co-op. That's our intention at least. Am I forgetting any co-op specific stuff, Clint?
I don't know. They're really designed to be the same experience. There's a question in Twitch about 4-player co-op, if that would be too easy or not. I don't think it's about easy or hard. You can always balance the game around 4 players instead of 2. I think 4-player co-op is just too chaotic. It's too much. I mean, it could probably be built and made to work, but even 2-player co-op gets very, very crazy and overwhelming sometimes, to the point where people might lose track of what's going on. That's kind of just part of the chaos. I think 4-player would be maybe too much for the type of item interactions that we're building. I think we would have to simplify the gameplay to make more than 2 people work.
And the amount of decisions being made, the resource management with 4 players would get to be quite a lot.
I think it would start to be quite a lot in UnderMine. You can, at least in 2-player, there's room to grow. You can have the starting experience be not totally chaotic, even though it does get that way by the end of the run. 4-player would just be chaotic right out of the gate, like too chaotic.
Yeah, and to be clear, it is just 2-player. I don't know if you guys said that definitively, but yes, 2-player local co-op for UnderMine 2 at the early access. The Void Shaman asks, will there be PvP? No, right? It's just we work together.
We have we have a PvP mode that we play around with called Hot Potato sometimes, where you bat a bomb back and forth and trying to juke the other player into taking bomb damage from it. But no, friendly fire is off for your co-op partner, except in the cases where it's not off for yourself, like bombs.
Clint, what are you doing? Why are there so many pickaxes?
Stats are juiced up. So my fork is really high. My caliber. So fork increases the amount of projectiles you throw. This is true of all your projectiles. So items now, I think we talked about this a little bit last time, but items will indicate how they scale, or they will at least indicate what stats scale them. The stats themselves will have descriptions that explain generally how they work, and it's very intuitive. Caliber, for example, always increases the size of projectiles. If something shoots a projectile, it doesn't necessarily scale with caliber, but if it does, you can determine that it will make it bigger. Fork increases the number you fire. Bounce is like if it hits an enemy, it will bounce to another. Ricochet is it will bounce off the wall, and Pierce is how many enemies it'll go through before it dies. So this item, so here we'll go back to kind of base. Sorry, so we'll go back to base. Okay, so normally this is just a Arcana that shoots a fireball. It's super basic. But if you want to fire a bigger fireball, you can increase your caliber. To be clear, increasing caliber to 70 is difficult. It'll take some work to get there, but then you get a really big fireball. But what good is a really big fireball if it doesn't really like go through enemies? You're going to hit one enemy and do the same amount of damage, whatever. So now maybe you want to increase your pierce. Increase that. 50 is a lot. It means it'll go through 50 things before it dies. So here now you can hit a bunch of stuff and become very powerful. But that's not enough. We can go further. Let's up fork. 4 is plenty. So now I'm going to fire 4 fireballs. Also, please don't worry about performance. This is in the Unity editor, and performance is much worse just by default. And then if you want them to do more damage, you increase your intelligence, and that will do more damage. And then we can make them go off the wall. So hold on, fire that like that. Now they're doing this. So the game goes hard. And this is just one item. This is just the basic spell book that fires a fireball. And there are many, many, many other things that scale just as hard as this thing does, and in more unique ways. So we're really excited for people to, do this thing.
The Void Shaman says very excited about magic. Maybe we could speak to Arcana a little bit, because that's something that you guys have upgraded in a big way for UnderMine 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my other thought of favorite feature of this game is Arcana are just such a game changer. They're hard to ignore. Nope, we got stuck fireball.
Nothing to see.
Oh.
Don't worry about it. Don't look at it.
Just drag a bunch of rats over there and let them sit on it.
It is wizard time.
Yeah, but tell us, how does Arcana change the game so dramatically? What does it do?
Go over it, Derek.
So, the activated item slot is a pretty basic idea as far as games go, but really, really changes up the landscape of UnderMine 1. Pretty much our only like on-demand interactions in UnderMine 1 were drink a potion, drop a bomb, which led to some really kind of awkward items. I always felt like Transmutagen Blast was really your only reliable way to expend a resource and like interact with another thing in the world. If you wanted to re-roll an item, you had to drop a bomb on it. That's a bit strange, I guess. So now we have on a button press, spend some mana or other resource. I hope it's no spoiler to say that not all Arcana cost mana, which leads to some very interesting stuff. Or maybe there's other ways to take a mana Arcana and then modify it to cast to use a different resource to cast. Anyway, now it's just a way to, with a button press, interact with the world. Either reroll an item or shoot a bunch of arrows, shoot a fireball, just do stuff. And it's such a refreshing way, or refreshing addition to the gameplay of UnderMine. Although fairly obvious, I guess, from a video game perspective. They make so much sense in our world.
Your comments about using things other than mana as a resource for these reminded me of a Discord question I saw. That is, what purpose do skulls serve as a pickup?
Ooh.
Yeah, that one came
question.
from Nana on Discord. It's a good question.
I'm not telling what skulls do.
Okay, let's not tell what skulls do. Let's just say that there are many resources in UnderMine 2, and we'll leave
And
it.
one of them
we'll
are
leave
skulls.
It at that. Yeah, one of them happens to be called skulls, and you get them from surprise skeletons. That's all we'll say.
Okay. Someone also asked if they could be Zeus. I think you've got an Arcana
Oh yeah.
in your
You can
pocket for that.
You can become Zeus if you want to. Absolutely.
I think one of the things we ran into with UnderMine is we just did not like. We had swinging and throwing and laying a bomb and jumping. These are essentially things that we call proc points. They're like something you can do to trigger an event. And we were severely lacking this very obvious one, which is push a button on your controller and trigger that event. Like just give you control to do something. And so really Arcana are now that. Like, do you want to throw a fireball? Do you want to throw a boomerang? Do you want to teleport across the room? Do you want to create an item? Do you want to transmute something? Do you want to X, Y, or Z? Like just do something. And now Arcana give you that capability. I don't think it's spoiling too much that you will be able to equip 2 Arcana. So you'll be able to have ones that potentially can interact with one another. And they just open up like a lot of possibility. Like this one I was showing off called Arm Cannon. This fires the bomb in your bomb slot. So if you don't want to lay a bombushka down at your feet and risk blowing yourself up, this thing will launch it across the room for you. And so if you combine that with classic bombs like the Rook bomb, now you have a very, very powerful thing that you can launch at your enemies. So that's very cool.
And it's a projectile. So all of the rules that we just saw with the fireball, guess what? Things get really crazy with this
Is that
item.
true?
Try
Oh
to-
no, we didn't have it scale with any of the projectile things.
Oh, okay, I'm mistaken. At one
Doesn't
point
work?
it did. I guess it was too strong, so we rolled that
Maybe
back.
we.
Too strong or scared. Derek was too scared about what it would do to your CPU. So
Yeah, that's also
Yeah.
a big fear of mine. I wake up in cold sweats thinking about performance all the time, basically every night.
Though while working on our bomb VFX, which are a little over the top compared to UnderMine 1, I've made sure I've filled rooms with bombs. So many bombs, all going off. So many bombushkas. I'm trying to find ways to bring Unity to its knees, but still trying. Clint mentioned having 2 Arcana slots, which is great, because if you have an Arcana that you find that potentially has some sort of utility and maybe isn't a combat focused Arcana, you don't feel as though you're giving up some huge part of your build to pick it up. You can have something that's, for clearing rooms, and then something else that I don't know if I want to spoil any of the more mechanical or utility Arcana, but
Slight Train earlier on the Twitch chat, speaking of relics and Arcana and stuff, was asking if there are character exclusive relics.
yes,
There are, and they're very fun.
yeah. One of my favorites.
Which
so
if you're playing single player, you probably don't. Those relics aren't going to get dropped for you, right? Necessarily.
they will only get dropped if you're playing the character that they're unique to.
Mhm.
And only that character can pick them up. So in the case of co-op, if for instance these cat claws, which are unique to Black Rabbit, if they get dropped, the peasant will, or any other player character will not be able to pick them up. Only she can. And the reason these exist is because usually they'll interact with like a move set or something about the character that really only applies to them. So cat claws are cool, where if you dash through an enemy, you will automatically do a melee strike against that enemy. The thing that makes this cool is kind of how it scales, because melee strikes are AoEs, so they will, anything caught in them will take damage. So if you do find a way to increase your reach, for example, which increases the size of your AoE, you will do big melee strikes, and you will. So if we spawn a bunch of rats are always my demo for killing, and we go through here, you will do melee damage to all these rats. And right now it's not a lot, it's just doing her normal melee attack, so you need to up your strength a little bit, and now you will kill these rats because your strength is high. So yeah, cool stuff.
Great item, and it will proc anything that your melee procs if you have Bottle Lightning or Salamander
True.
Gale or something like that. It'll be doing all those effects too.
So if you have melee attack items like this, now you will light everything on fire. If
Yeah.
it works.
Fun item.
You want to do it 100% of the time, you got to increase your luck. Now you always get fire.
Yeah, great question.
Enemy health bars do require glasses again. Glasses are a very easy like upgrade you can buy at the very beginning of the game. So it's more a theme thing rather than locking them behind anything. Just you really when you don't have this upgrade, it really sucks. So it's like a nice little boost you get right at the beginning of the game that like gives you something that feels strong.
I don't know how to pronounce this name. Patate Cutie. It's asking a little bit about story and lore. And will the story / lore be more present or have more effect on the hub than in UnderMine 1?
The story will be more present. We've built a lot of systems that let us mostly just control when characters will talk about things. I feel like in UnderMine, Arcanos was the biggest example of somebody who would talk and refer to events that had happened in the game. But he didn't have like a really big tree. He had maybe 8 or 9 different things he would say, depending on the state of the game. And the reason for that was because it was very tedious and very error prone. We just didn't have a system. It was like kind of in the background to make that work. So we've developed dialogue systems that help us do this and be far more accurate. Like we want to make sure that if you're clicking on a character to talk with them, they're going to say relevant things and they're going to kind of unfold the story for you. So we've gone to great lengths to make sure that that happens. And because that's easier, we're just naturally going to use it more and develop more story. The hub is designed to change a lot, more than the last hub did. So I guess, yes, I guess it will develop more with the story. The hub will get used a lot because things like new playable characters will come to the hub, and that's where you'll choose to swap to them, or you'll be able to talk with them and see what they have to say. And I don't think we're going to reach like Hades level of like character interaction. They're pretty like pinnacle of the genre and really hard to compete against. But I think if you really enjoy the characters of this game, you're going to have a lot to chew on and a lot to like discover with them. And we hope to have a lot of good returning characters and a lot of new characters for people to form new relationships with or discover.
Aqua Tsunami on Discord actually asked for favorite new and returning characters, which would be tough to share a favorite new character, I think, without explaining them or spoiling them too much. I would imagine, right?
Yeah, probably. I think favorite returning character is something we could certainly answer.
Cortland, who's your favorite?
The answer for me was probably Beltrami for a while, but it might be Wayland now.
That's my answer too.
Wayland?
Wayland's awesome. Yeah.
Should we show Wayland?
We kind of
We
already
show
have,
him?
I guess, in Discord, so we might as well here too. Yeah.
Well, Wayland has a very nice room. I guess the thing, Wayland's room is actually an example of one that changes a lot over the course of the game. So I guess I'll show it to you in one state, but you won't necessarily see it in its full glory.
Yeah, that question, I guess it was sort of specifically about the hub, and almost everything. The hub that you saw earlier was basically a fresh save file version of the hub where nobody's there and it's all boarded up, boxed up, like you're just kind of dropping in fresh. Every section of that room has like sort of a packed up state and an active state. When Black Rabbit opens up her shop and various characters start coming in, a lot changes in this room. A lot changes in the other rooms adjoining the forge where Clint's headed now.
Oh, I guess I did see Wayland's. So this is Wayland's room when you've kind of not fully restored it.
Partially.
Close.
So this room itself has like several states that it goes through, and showing off
Some fun bellows.
the bellows, that functional bellows.
By the way, everyone, Aqua Tsunami, who asked the question on Discord and is in the chat, they said there is a right answer, and it's just a pilfer. general. So, sorry that you guys got that one
You-
wrong in your own game, and it's embarrassing for all of us, frankly. But
It is. I'm embarrassed. I don't.
Oh.
I don't. Why did I think of the pilfer?
Well, you'll be glad there's some other pilfer. I guess we'll call them pilfer characters and NPCs and things that you'll get to meet.
but this
I
year we're
think-
looking at Waylon's his proper portrait now, which was added to the game somewhat recently. So it's really cool to see him there in all his glory.
Yeah, I think Corlin's done a really great job with these portraits, and they bring the characters to life in a pretty whole new way. Wayland is a great character. He's very fun to write, because he's such a Wayland's character. When I write a character, I kind of feel like I have a personality in mind, and Wayland's personality to me is Chris Pratt's character on Parks and Rec. Like he's weirdly competent at things. Like Wayland is a very good blacksmith, but he is a total dummy. Like he's a mimbo or a himbo or whatever. So yeah, he's very fun. I think my favorite returning is Black Rabbit. She's always been. I was definitely not a writer before UnderMine. UnderMine really pushed me to expand some skills, and writing is one of them. I think I've gotten a lot better for UnderMine too, so I'm excited for people to engage with the story and the characters. But Black Rabbit was always a very fun character to write because of just how smarmy, and I try to write a very sassy character that doesn't fall into the Marvel humor. I don't want her characters to sound like Joss Whedon characters. So I hope that is the case.
Well, I like her overt sort of confidence. Like she's one of my favorite characters, and it might be because I like playing as her too. But I just appreciate how she's very confident.
Yeah.
A lot of questions in the chat about pets. I don't know if you guys want to speak to pets in the game.
I assume by pets they mean familiars,
I believe,
or maybe
so,
they mean
yes.
dogs.
You can charm wolves so that they become part of your army. So those are kind of pets. But then you also have the familiars, like Black Rabbit's bird there.
Well, to clarify, you can charm any enemy in the game outside of major bosses. So if you want a skeleton friend, you can have a skeleton friend if you want. I guess pilfers can't be charmed either.
Not yet. They would take a slot in your army, and I don't think you'd want that.
Sorry, I don't know why I closed that. I was chilling to the drumming of Wayland, but
So if we are talking about familiars, are we gonna get a cat familiar or pet? One I guess, technical restriction we have on familiars right now is that they fly, just because they become so unusable if they have to pathfind around the world and fall in pits and all that kind of stuff. So
that
Not that we-
doesn't preclude a cat. Didn't Sailor Moon have a little floating cat, or I remember some anime where there was
oh sure, yeah,
a Mew type cat.
Sure, we can Nyan cat it up and just put wings on anything we want. So yeah, it's not out of the question, certainly. Not that everything was a bird in UnderMine 1, but as long as we can find a cute way to make it fly believably, sure, I think anything is on the table.
Nary with a saddle with a cat on it. There you go.
Yeah, totally.
We have re-implemented familiars, but they're actually one of the systems we haven't entirely finished yet. And this is a situation where I'm curious how players feel, because UnderMine 2 feels a bit like a redo for us, and so we want to re-implement a lot of stuff from the first game, but better. But I don't want UnderMine 2 to feel too much like just a copy of the first game, and so we're in a situation where we're about to rebuild a bunch of familiars, and I think we probably want to add all of them back, but I would like to add a lot of new ones as well. And I'm curious how players do you guys want familiars to be what they used to be, or at least in spirit be what they used to be, or do you prefer something new, like the black or the firebird to be like a significantly changed creature? Or is it better to be, maybe this is probably a very personal question, so maybe polling the community is not going to get the response I expect, but
I mean,
yeah.
Go to our Discord, respond to us on social media, give us your feedback on the familiars.
The skins, there's currently no plan to re-implement the skins at first, because it's a very it feels kind of like a less important system, and we're really focused on gameplay right now. I think the skins at some point probably will return, but there are some skins I don't like, and I don't want them to come.
Yeah, what is your general approach for everyone of just things coming forward from UnderMine 1 versus dropping things? Has anything? There was a question in the chat earlier about have any like relics or relics from UnderMine 1 changed on their journey to UnderMine 2 in significant ways?
Yeah, some have changed dramatically. Some have changed less so. Like I showed Unstable Concoction. Hold on, my audio is a little too loud for me, but yeah, Unstable Concoction has been changed to kind of fit in with the systems of UnderMine 2 more, and there's quite a few relics that fit that kind of description. There's some relics that were really, I know a lot of people have been really critical of UnderMine, and they really want a system where they don't like the unlock system because they feel like relics get added to the pool and they dilute the pool. And we don't want relics that feel useless. That's like, why do they exist if they're useless? You know what I mean? So part of the early access experience in UnderMine 2 will be to either make underpowered relics more powerful and on par with other relics so that people don't feel like there's useless relics. But there will also be tying them in with maybe this should be more into a bomb build, or maybe this should be more into an armor build or a shockwave build or a health build, or we have builds that are way more defined this time around, and a lot more space for these things to fit into. So there are underpowered relics that have gotten total facelifts, and then there are just like relics that we weren't entirely happy with, and we don't really have a good idea of where they fit in, and they just haven't been included. So the relic pool is going to feel familiar. There's going to be things like good old salamander tail. This to me is always like, this is one of the earliest relics that was ever implemented in UnderMine, and it's just kind of, to me, one of the default, like if I just need a relic, this is what I spawn usually when I'm testing things. So this comes back, but it has had UnderMine 2 things added to it. Like it now scales with your intelligence, so you can make it do more damage. Anything that has a chance usually scales with luck. So if you make your luck higher, you when things say sometimes, you can get that to often, because the luck will make it more likely. And then we have this concept of team now, and a team is like you and your followers. So if I have a bunch of flies following me, or a bunch of wasps, or crossbowmen, or any other enemy in the game, their attacks get the potential to ignite enemies as well. And so there's just like a lot more interaction opportunities. And yeah, so I'm very excited for people to get their hands on the relic pool. If there are relics that we haven't included that the community really, really misses, we will be very attuned to that. Like we will re-implement them, but we'll probably find ways to make it more viable, to make it more integrated into what we've built, or just more interesting in some way.
That's probably the biggest point, is the hooking existing relics or things that are being brought up, even if they are mostly the same, having them sort of be a systemic thing rather than a one-off. Having them hook into these existing systems, like the follower builds, or using existing stats like these, essentially the blessing stats to or at least interacting with those stats, so they'll take into account the systems that we put in place with the new game. So there's more potential for interaction. There's fewer things that are just kind of one-offs that don't fit into a build.
we've got a handful of kind of specific questions that we can go through here. Nana on Discord was asking about the potential of a bank feature. Since the system with gold and crowns was mentioned, I was wondering if there will be a bank feature or some way where we can save money or some of it from our run without losing it all.
Yeah, I think with the new system, so this is an example of how crowns work. So I have 2 crowns, and this is an upgrade for Black Rabbit that gives her a chance of discovering blessings when she opens chests. One thing I was not personally happy with in UnderMine was the accumulation of gold in the end game. Like, players could stockpile like 600,000 gold, and so you get to a shop and you're like, well, there's no decision to be made here. The decision is buy it all, because why not? Because I can afford it. And the worst thing that happens is you get to the end of the run and you have less stored gold than you did before, and maybe you need to stockpile a little bit more. To me, that's not a very interesting roguelike experience. So we have changed that around, and now gold exists purely in the UnderMine. You can see here, once you get to the hub, it always gets zeroed out. And gold gets accumulated. There's lots of ways to break it, so you can become very rich. You can buy out shops if you still want to, but for the most part, you need to make interesting decisions on what you want to buy. And in replacement of that, you get crowns for defeating bosses, or from chests, or from other sources. And these let you come back and upgrade yourself. So you don't have to make this decision about, am I going to use this resource in the UnderMine, or am I going to use it in the hub? But the thing that I'm cautious about is, I know a lot of people like that overpowered feeling of like, I'm going to go in with all this gold and just like really have a money run. Like, I get to just do whatever I want. We would like to still cater to that experience. Whether it's allowed with achievements and stuff is kind of up to debate right now, but we really want you to be able to play this game the way you want to play it. And so if you want to hinder yourself like crazy and make the game very, very hard for yourself, we are going to make that, we're going to let you do that. And if you want to make the game very easy for yourself and make yourself very overpowered, we're going to let you do that too. But we want to strike the right balance so that the core experience of the game feels like a good challenge and feels like there should be something for everyone. If you are a hardcore roguelike player, this game will adjust itself to you. If you are a casual player and just kind of want to see the story, you'll be able to do that too. That kind of ties in with that question a little bit. So whatever kind of experience you want from a roguelike, we kind of want to provide.
Another specific kind of mechanical question from Dave's employee on Discord. They're wondering how the co-op camera will work. How will the camera interact with multiple players? Will it be fixed on one player, as it is in Spelunky? Or will you do it the Lego way with dynamic split screen, classic static split screen? Maybe something that zooms the camera out as players get further from each other. They just want to know what the approach is for that, for the co-op camera.
Yeah, I'll demonstrate it.
Yeah, it's easy to show. So long story short, there's only one camera, and yes, it does zoom out if the players get too far apart. There are bounds, though. It is possible to get P2 off the screen if you try really hard, because some of our rooms are too big to zoom the camera out enough without seeing the seams around the edge of the room. But yeah, I think it's definitely the correct solution above split screen or player 1 bias cameras. I don't like those at all, because player 2 doesn't feel important anymore. So yeah, here you can see as BR gets further away from the peasant, he has fallen off the screen, unfortunately. Sometimes we talk about having a little off-screen indicator appear at the edge of the screen, but you kind of have to force this situation. During normal gameplay, this typically does not happen, because you always generally want to keep close to your co-op partner to maximize your DPS against single targets. Yeah, it's pretty good feeling though. And then if one player dies, then it kind of reverts back to single player mode, where the dead player gets a ghost to control, but the ghost is pretty inconsequential, so we pretty much bias towards player 1 at that point, or the living player at that point.
How are you doing this technically, Clint? How are you playing? You're like
My left hand is on the keyboard and my right hand is on the controller. You can
play it
look on in an awe of my ability to do this.
speaking of the auto player, this is a feature we talk about implementing a lot. Is that having an auto player controlled player 2 would be a pretty interesting experience. I think just to have an AI control. This is a pretty old school video game idea where the CPU controls player 2. You know, totally feasible now with this system, and would be kind of an interesting way to play.
Technically feasible, but man, that character is not going to
Yep.
make very smart decisions when it comes
Yeah,
to
that player's
sharing
kind
and-
of in charge of things. You gotta follow it around, I guess.
Another kind of technical question that no one has asked specifically, but Derek, one thing that you talked to me about recently was how the save system works. It's actually, you did a lot of work on it and how game saves work and how it backs things up for you. I was wondering if you could speak to that a little bit.
Sure. So the overall structure is similar to UnderMine 1 in that it only saves when you go down a floor. It saves at the beginning of the floor rather than mid-run. The big change here, the big addition here, is that your saves, assuming you've opted into this feature, you don't have to connect to the cloud, but if you do, your saves are archived to the cloud every single time you come back to the hub. So if something goes wrong with your save file ever, let's say you formatted your computer, or your little brother decides to delete your save file, or random cosmic ray corrupts that save file, whatever it is, we saw it all in UnderMine 1, you can roll back that slot to a previous state. So hopefully, I won't have to painstakingly rebuild anybody's save file by hand again this time. I did that dozens of times from UnderMine 1, and it was never fun. But people are now just in control of the version that they want to roll their save file back to. So you're never going to lose more than a single run worth of data if your save file does have some horrible accident. It's a great feature. I hope that players really understand it and take advantage of it, because it was fairly difficult to implement. And the nice thing about it also is that you can easily switch Steam profiles. You can move saves around between PCs or between profiles a lot easier with this, because there is a common repository where all of it is saved.
Will it default to that, or is that something you have to opt for? Because I know you said you have to opt in for it, right?
You do. You will have to make a specific account. You basically have to choose a password, so then it recognizes who you are in the cloud across multiple devices in order to transfer them around.
Yeah, but it'll be worth it.
I hope so. Yeah, we put a lot of time and effort into making the UI pretty easy to use and understand, and totally anonymous. You're not opting into any additional telemetry data or anything like that when you do that. It's just a randomly generated GUID that gets assigned to you and associated with your save data on the cloud, if that makes sense.
As you're breaking down walls here, Clint, Nana on Discord asked about secret indicators. Is there a plan to implement an item that would show us how many secrets on a floor we are missing, or anything like that?
There are items that will show you what secrets there are, but there's nothing to indicate undiscovered secrets. I guess that kind of depends on what you define as a secret too. If it's these rooms, if it's like these question mark rooms, that's actually a pretty defined number per floor, so players can kind of hunt for them knowing that there are a certain amount per floor.
Oh, we had a question earlier in the chat from the Void Shaman asking about types of enemies and how many types of enemies we can expect in UnderMine 2.
A lot. I think we have more enemies implemented than UnderMine had right now. Some of these are color shifts, but a lot of them are brand new. One of my favorites is this little BB guy. BB is a little mini Bobo. He's not very dangerous unless there is a Bobo in the room, in which case he will find the Bobo and he will enrage the Bobo. Oh no!
What? Oh no, Bobo.
Well, something is wrong with Bobo.
Bobo's got an issue.
Anyways, yeah, the BBs will go and find the Bobos and punch them in the ankles, and then you'll have to deal with the enraged Bobos. That's one of my favorite new enemies. I don't want to spoil too many of them, but there are a lot. And there will be a lot of like color shifts too. I think I showed off this one early on, this is like just like our crossbowman from UnderMine 1, but this guy is a repeater crossbowman, so he shoots many arrows, and he'll come in like later zones. And he's like other crossbowmen, so he has armor.
Yeah, and they can all be charmed, right?
Anything can be charmed. Absolutely anything. Got to make that clear. So
Not only
Speaking
rats,
of-
but rat's nest.
Yeah, it's true. You charm a rat's nest, you get all the rats too. Speaking of another pretty cool feature that we've implemented for this game, again, both for our own purposes and to make modders' lives easier, is the color shift system. Previously in UnderMine 1, we had to actually go redraw the sprites if we wanted to colorize something differently. Now we have a shader and a set of textures you can provide that will colorize any sort of existing enemy. So if you want to make a mod, but your art skills are lacking and you don't want to have to redraw a sprite, you can just color shift one of our existing enemies into a new variation that players will be able to distinguish from the original. And yeah, it's pretty easy to use, and the tool set's pretty good.
This was a question I've kind of been saving for later in the stream. Might even be a good final question if we want to start considering that. But Angry Taco on Discord asked, what kind of post-launch support will there be for UnderMine 2? UnderMine 1 had free updates, but no paid DLC. Will UnderMine 2 be the same, or is there going to be a different approach? It would be cool to see major expansions that add new zones, characters, and items. It would also be a good way for the community to support development and get new content. It's a big question that we don't have full answers for, right? But there's lots of ideas floating around in everyone's head, I'm sure.
I think we have a pretty full answer for this. It's not going to be significantly different from UnderMine. A long time ago, we came to the conclusion that we would rather just have a community that all shares the same game, and we don't divide that up between DLC packs or anything like that. The best thing that players can do to support the game is just buy the game. And if you really want to spend more money, then buy it for somebody else. Or support us on social media, or just do those things. I really personally like the development philosophy of games like Stardew Valley, Slay the Spire, these indie games that just continue to make themselves bigger and bigger and more impressive as time goes on. And I think that's going to be our goal this time, or that's going to be our way of doing things this time around again.
Yeah, Cortland and Derek, do you guys have sort of long-term plans, even ambiguous ones?
What do you think, Cortland?
I've got a few stretch art goals of things that I'm always kind of nudging these guys. Like, hey, once we get all the, eating our vegetables, so to speak, I got, big pieces of art that I'm always excited to try to get in the game. But I'm always excited when we start talking about a new zone. Or right now we're working on a pass of doing a bunch of enemies. But for me, yeah, I mean, we're kind of we set a chunk aside of what we want to work on. Like last, it was a zone, and then wrapping that up, I'm always excited to move on to something else. And so now it's like a whole swath of enemies that we're adding. But to be able to just continue to do that, like, hey, we, post EA, post 1.0, being able to like just sit down and talk about like, man, it'd be nice to add another zone, and just sitting down and doing it. We have a really good handle on how long it takes to do this stuff. Our systems are all in a state where we know what biting off something like that looks like and how long it'll take. And so we're, especially compared to UnderMine 1, our ability to, say, hey, all right, we want to do another zone, or we want to add another player character. We know how to do it and how to do it right and make something fun and do it quickly.
Portland is always talking also, this is not game related necessarily, but it is potentially post-launch, about putting out an art book for your coffee table of all of how many sketchbooks do you have right now, Cortland, of concept art?
Enough. Got 2, 3 in here, a bunch of 4 more over there.
I love
So
it.
it's all here.
Yeah,
I will at some point gotta scan it all. But yeah, and I really enjoy sharing that stuff on the Discord. If people are getting a kick out of it, I'll keep doing it. But yeah, at some point it'd be nice to collect it all.
Yeah, for sure. For me, you could probably guess my answer. My post launch life is going to be full of mod support and working with the community to really nail that system correctly and continue to keep it up to date and not just fall by the wayside. So, as well as continuing to support our highest priorities to continue to support our own content development with new features and new systems to support our items and bosses and enemies. So, just more of the same. We want this game to be the roguelike, just the biggest roguelike out there that's just unbeatable as far as the amount of content that we eventually get. And I think given the state of our systems right now and our ambition and our continual motivation, we will absolutely reach that goal.
Yeah, still on this topic of future plans, Slide Train asks about alternate modes, something like UnderMine in the future.
It's certainly on the table. Yeah, right now we're really focused on the core experience. UnderMine was, in a way, our ability to kind of work towards that more traditional roguelike mode that I was describing earlier. That I think this game will feel more like naturally. It's UnderMine was incredibly hard, and so I don't want that to scare people away. That's not our intention to be ridiculously hard. Well, we do want to be ridiculously hard, but it's a bit more of an opt-in situation rather than like an automatic situation. But like Derek said, we want to make this game really big, and so if there's a really good idea, we want to put it in. And if that's a different mode, then yeah, it'll get put in. I guess one obvious thing is, or one obvious mode that we will add back in was whip, or a version of it, which is our daily run type of mode. And that might look a little bit different, but the intention is to have like a daily challenge or maybe a weekly challenge or both, so that people can compete. And so that'll be one thing that returns for sure, I think.
Great. Yeah, that was Ryan Shadow on Discord was actually asking about that specifically, and community events and things like that. And yeah, with me here, the hope is to do more of that stuff with more frequency for UnderMine too. So yeah, what do you guys think? Is there anything else you want to touch on? There's a billion things we haven't talked about by choice because you don't want to spoil the big parts of UnderMine too. But any final thoughts for this Q&A?
Man, we talked about a lot, so I don't know. What do you guys have?
Yeah. I mean, I just want to really thank our community this time around, because this phase in UnderMine 1 development, we had no one. We were still desperately alone and hadn't found our community yet. So it's such a different experience for us. We're so much more motivated this time around because we feel like we have a really strong contingent of fans, and it's life-changing for us. So thank you everybody who's stayed with us and is eager to continue on this experience with us as we develop out this game and take you through a really good early access phase with it.
Yeah. Seeing people get excited about what we've built, about what we're building after being sort of quietly, secretively working on it for so long has been such a huge morale boost and a big shift for us. And you guys coming out for this, hitting us with the questions and being active in Discord, that's and now with Kyle sharing more, it's been great. So
yeah, I'm just sharing what you guys are making.
Yeah, to pile onto that, I am very thankful for our community. We developed, UnderMine was released basically just before COVID hit, and so we actually didn't get that much. We didn't get much exposure to our community after people like knew what UnderMine was. Like, we went to conventions before UnderMine went EA, and we had to convince them or explain to them what the game even was. And now many people have played the game, and it's but we haven't had that experience of like running into players and being like, oh yeah, we made this game, and they're like, oh yeah, I really enjoy that, or they already know what the name of it is. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that it really blows our mind how many people do know about the game and how many people have played it. And we're very excited to hopefully give those people a new experience, to bring new people in, and to make this whole thing much bigger than it was the first time around. I know people really want an EA date. We can't give it right now, but the wait is shrinking. We do have time frame in mind, and we're on target to deliver. So the wait is getting shorter. I can't say how short, but we're very, very, very excited for people to get their hands on it and to be part of the process of making this game better. So
Cool. Well, thanks, Clint, Derek, Cortland, for the stream. The community appreciates it. I'm just happy to hang out with you guys and see you build the game in real time, weirdly, on stream. Such a cool thing to see. Yeah, the Void Shaman asked about next dev stream. I mean, we want to continue to do these, I think, right? But not on a specific cadence necessarily. We'll surprise you guys with another one in the future when we have more to show. But yeah, thanks for everyone tuning in and making time for us. And yeah, look forward to UnderMine too. We're very close to 100,000 wish lists. So, tell your friends to go wishlist UnderMine too on Steam. Help us out.
Tell your mom.
Yeah,
Make your dog a Steam account.
Go make your second Steam account and wishlist us again.
Yeah, that's right.
Very close to 100,000.
Yeah.
Which is incredible. And Clint talks about like goals and like how you reframe things, and it's just, that feels like such a, I don't know that we really expected that, and it just feels really good to see the feedback and the excitement.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thanks everybody. I think we'll call that a stream.
thank you, everyone.
Yeah. Have a
Yeah,
good night.
thanks everyone who's tuned in.
Thank
Have
you
a
guys.
great one.
See ya.